everybody, and welcome back to the Chilluminati podcast, episode 285. As always, I'm one of your hosts, Mike Martin, today joined by my two co-hosts, the J. Allen Hynek and Philip K. Imbrogno of LA, Jesse and Alex.
I'm clearly the one you can't pronounce.
Are you sure?
Imbrogno.
I sound like an Imbrogno. I feel
does anybody
Imbrogno.
even know how to pronounce my last name?
Facciano de Spucciagazzo.
Anyway, I'm Hynek.
Yes, you are. But I think at the end of this, Jesse, you're going to regret saying that you're in the Imbrogno.
I have no regrets. I'll be real. I got no regrets.
We'll see.
Imbrogno.
Unless you're telling me this guy like killed and ate a family, I'm fine.
No.
Then no regrets.
That just tells me you forgot who J. Allen Hynek was.
Maybe
if you think this is like a true crime episode.
Maybe he killed and ate your worldview. You know what I'm saying?
Fuck.
I'm all right.
Open up the third eye.
Does this look good? Is this a good look?
It's too big. That's a full forehead worth of eye.
For those who only hear it, Alex opened up his third eye, and it's enormous.
Give me a good, clean description of what this looks like for everybody.
Alex has opened his forehead eye, which is the size of his entire forehead.
Oh yeah.
Both making it impractical, and he would go immediately blind by the amount of light blasting his forehead.
Yeah.
And
also, lightly highlighting my hair loss as I age. Just highlighting some of the places
but people
where it's
wouldn't know
most
because a
evident.
giant eyeball. Imagine an eye the size of 12 eyeballs put together.
Yeah.
That is what he has unloaded on his forehead. And honestly, it would be scary.
Imagine if Mike Wazowski had a face on his chin. That's what it would be like.
That's exactly the old face chin.
Description.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I'm J. Allen Hynek.
Yeah. Welcome to... God, you derailed the fuck out of me. You can support J. Allen Hynek on Patreon.
Yeah, he's on there. He does a vlog every week. We channel him in with his spirit box. It costs $600 a month. It's a new tier that we're doing. It's called the Made Up tier. You can go there, check it out. And all the real tiers are there as well. Where you get real good actual rewards that are tangible, feel good. Mel, who does all the art, the bunnies, the Bigfoot, all that stuff that you guys have probably seen. She does
the desert.
Yeah, she does art every single month on the channel for Patreon. That's just for us, just for you guys. That's like a sick ass. The one from last time was like this like sick graffiti one.
Yeah, like a street art style.
The Chilluminati logo had like fangs and a tongue, and it had weed crocs, like Mathis's weed crocs, and there was like a little alien stuck under its shoe like gum. I think it's like smoking a fucking blunt. It's good shit. It's good shit. Get in there, have a look. Those are the real rewards. If you want the made up rewards, they're $600 a month, and they do not exist. Thank you.
All right. Excellent. Unlike today's episode, which is totally real. Alex, I know you're expecting a certain episode today. I'm throwing you a curveball. I'm bumping.
Hey, I got my gloves on, so don't even trip.
We are still doing aliens, and it is the last mass sighting. We're doing a mass sighting that we haven't covered before, but I would say it's the last mass sighting we're going to cover that is basically a one-parter. That is because the next few that we're going to cover that we've got scheduled are big boys. And this is one that I've kind of had on in my notes for a while. This is the Hudson Valley sightings.
Hey,
are you familiar with the Hudson Valley sightings, gentlemen?
I think I watched like some kind of documentary in college that was like 5 stories of the UFOs, and one of them was this. Yeah,
it's one of the biggest ones. It took place mostly over the course of 2 years, 1984 to 1986, but the first sighting started right in the beginning of 1982. And these were sightings that were witnessed by not hundreds, but thousands of people. This is something that was just like vastly seen, reported by police, seen by police. And of course, there are given explanations that we'll cover. But we're going to jump into this pretty deep. And the very first thing I want to say is the top main source.
Quick question. Real quick. Mm-hmm. Geographically, we're talking like Hudson River Valley?
Yes. Right.
Okay.
Yes, I believe that's
like New York.
Hudson Valley. Yes. Yeah. Out in New York. Correct.
Yep. It's like, it's literally like the East Coast version. It's like the Old Bay seasoning version of the Phoenix Lights. Like,
kind of like that. But yeah, basically for several years in the early part of the 80s, thousands of people reported seeing extraordinary shit in the sky, all the time. And this wasn't just like a fleeting light or an odd shape that was kind of maybe a bird, could have been something else, who fucking knows. No, these were consistent, prolonged sightings of enormous, some reported the size of football fields, completely silent, boomerang-shaped or triangular objects, often described as just being, as like I said, bigger than a football field, usually hovering low over highways, rivers, and residential areas. This is the Hudson Valley Sightings flap, one of the most significant and prolonged mass UFO sightings in modern history. This happened, I was born in 1986, so this is before my time, but just right around then. My parents, I should have asked my parents about this when I was putting this together, if they'd knew anything. They didn't live in New York at the time, but I imagine it was on
Sometimes this shit was like a big deal on national news.
This is 82 to 86. This is just like, early 80s.
I didn't realize it was that long.
Yeah, it was a long time. And it's just one of those things where there's so much witness testimony for it, but because of one particular person who is very attached to this, I'd say the credibility of the Hudson Valley sightings kind of fell. And we're going to talk about him in great detail in the back half of this episode. But our main source for today is the book Night Siege by Dr. J. Allen Hynek and his co-author, Philip J. Imbrogno.
Can I ask a question really quickly before we jump into this?
Yeah, of course.
Because it's been in my mind, and I think it's interesting. When you talk about this, you say a lot of people saw it, and there's this big, do you think that 20 years from now, people will be talking about the New Jersey flap?
Dude, when I was putting this episode together,
books were written
a few days ago when I started the script, that was a thought I had. Because this
100
kind of reminds me of what's happening now, continuing to happen now. Except the military gave an excuse for this one, where it's weird that the military's like, we don't know what it is until Trump came in, and then they were like, they're FAA certified research something, and that which made no sense, which when the FAA said they didn't know what it was, and also they're in England and Germany and all these other places.
It just sounded like somebody saying calm the fuck down. It
Literally.
didn't feel like a measured and like information-minded response.
And this is a little off topic, but it was great to watch the UFO subreddit get extremely mad that they were like, he said he was going to tell us what the drones were. And I'm like, you fools.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, that was going to be, you thought that was going to happen? Okay.
Yeah, man.
But yeah, this thing was one, I love that comparison because I had that same thought when I was putting the episode together. Yeah, the sheer volume and persistence of the Hudson Valley UFO sightings ended up drawing a lot of attention and brought a lot of vigorous, methodical investigation. It wasn't a phenomenon that could be easily dismissed. It required a dedicated effort to gather data, interview witnesses, and attempt to make any kind of sense of whatever these events were unfolding above the New York skies. Two key figures emerged as the central effort. The two authors of the main book that we're looking at and using today, Dr. J. Allen Hynek and Philip J. Imbrogno. And it was with their combined efforts and expertise, with their very contrasting backgrounds, but a very fervent, shall we call it, commitment to uncovering what was going on, made them a pretty powerful duo, though Imbrogno really annoyed the fuck out of Hynek. And it was just, I see a sliver.
Would you say it was like
myself.
Mario and Luigi? Would you say it's like Mario and Luigi or like Mario and Wario?
No, closer to Mario and Luigi than Mario and Wario. But if Luigi was less paranoid and more eccentric.
Yeah, I'm just trying to like connect it for our 35-year-olds listening to something that they're familiar with. Yeah.
Now, we've talked about Hynek in the past, but I'm going to give you a refresher here as to who Hynek was. He passed in 1986, by the way, April of 1986. And I want you to know I was born on May 2nd of 1986. So I'm probably a reincarnation of J. Allen Hynek.
That checks out.
Yeah, but probably. Hynek, in many ways, is kind of the father of modern ufology. His credentials are really impeccable. He earned a PhD in astrophysics from the University of Chicago in 1935, specializing in the study of stellar spectra, which is the analysis of light emitted by stars to determine their composition and properties. This background provided him basically with an understanding of astronomy, physics, and the scientific method very, very well. And he held professorships at Ohio State University and Northwestern University, where he eventually chaired the astronomy department. So the man comes with like the education. He was also the most famously, especially for our listeners, part of Project Blue Book, In 1948, Hynek's life went into by way of U.S. Air Force to serve as their scientific consultant to Project Sign, the first official investigation into UFO reports. This project evolved into Project Grudge and ultimately known to become Project Blue Book, which ran until 1969. So a little over a decade.
Or till today.
His initial task was to provide, as he would come forward to say, he was basically told to provide natural or man-made explanations for their UFO sightings. Essentially, he was there to debunk them. He was a skeptic already going into this, so that wasn't a big deal, but approaching the phenomenon with the assumption that there was logical explanations still left him at the end, and it's time being done with it, going, no, wait, there's something here, and causing him to continue the studies and become his life after Project Blue Book.
Like believer in UFOs, or
yes,
or just kind of like still open-minded because he had no answer.
He was very much a believer. He wrote a book with Jacques Vallée, The Edge of Reality, which is one of the ones I have. And
that's a seminal work. Yeah.
It's if you're a UFO kind of head, it's one of the ones you need to read. That book, though, is a much more philosophical approach to and the idea that these are not necessarily, nuts and bolts from another planet, but could be consciousness related. And Hynek seemed to indulge in that a little bit in that. So he was a believer because he left with more questions than answers for a significant percent of them.
Yeah.
And I'm not
that's
saying
like the funnest
50%
genre
of them. We're talking 5 to 10% of them, which is statistically significant.
That's significant. That's worth worth remarking upon, right? Literally remarkable.
Over 2 decades of examining thousands of cases, Hynek meticulously categorized and analyzed the data. He was such a fucking nerd. He successfully explained the vast majority of sightings as misidentified aircraft, which is true, or astronomical phenomenon, weather events, or even hoaxes. However, a persistent percentage of cases, often involving highly credible witnesses like what we now know as, we're seeing today, pilots, police officers, military personnel, would come to him privately because that was his job. And the things that they saw then reported defied any conventional explanation, according to Hynek. These cases exhibited what Hynek termed, quote, high strangeness, which are characteristics that could not be easily dismissed. Things that move in a way our physics would basically not allow something to move with our understanding, that kind of thing.
Can I ask what his process looked like what kind of things he was doing? Was he in a lab, or is he
Well, for Project Blue Book, it was basically if there was an area where something happened, he'd go out there, he'd go and interview each one of the witnesses and keep a very meticulous folder. He'd go to where the event happened, see if there were any physical evidence, take pictures, take notes, do measurements in the case where there were burn marks. That's kind of why, he was a nerd. He was just a very meticulous man. He was also the guy who introduced the swamp gas explanation to the world. In 1966, a series of UFO sightings in Michigan prompted Hynek to offer the explanation of swamp gas, which is basically, marsh gas igniting and creating unusual lights, which does happen. This explanation, while plausible for certain aspects of these sightings, was widely ridiculed and became a symbol of the Air Force's perceived kind of dismissiveness.
It's literally in Men in Black.
Yeah, and he's also gone on record afterwards saying he regrets even introducing swamp gas as an excuse because it is the thing that people latched onto and it just kind of ran rampant throughout the community. I'd
love to read the report that it came from, though, and see what I wonder if the report that it came from actually maybe was swamp gas.
Yeah, it's been so long since I've seen the report. I don't remember, but it's out there. I should go read it again too. After Project Blue Book closed in 1969, though, Hynek became a vocal advocate for the serious scientific research and study of UFOs. He argued that the unexplained cases represented a genuine scientific mystery that deserved rigorous investigation, free from ridicule and preconceived notions. He founded the Center of UFO Studies, CUFOS, in 1973, an organization dedicated to collecting, analyzing, and disseminating information about UFOs. He's also the guy who came up with the Close Encounters Scale. This was introduced in his 1972 book, The UFO Experience, A Scientific Inquiry, and categorized UFO sightings based on their proximity and nature of the interaction. However, it's important to note that he specifically only went up to 3. Close Encounters, the first, second, and third kind. The first kind was sightings of UFOs within 500 feet, very specifically. Close encounter of the second kind for him is sightings accompanied by physical effects like electromagnetic interference or vegetation damage from something landing. And a close encounter of the third kind was observation of quote unquote animated beings associated with the UFO, seeing other creatures or beings within the ship. And that is all there was. However, nowadays it goes way beyond 3. And we can thank Philip J. Imbrogno for that. And he is the reason for this. But let's talk about who Philip J. Imbrogno is. This is Philip Imbrogno brought a kind of a more contentious approach to UFO research, shall we say. While his early work on the Hudson Valley sightings was undeniably valuable, like he truly was a very important piece to this Hudson Valley sightings, his later explorations, which we will dive into, just jump the shark, like just some insane fucking shit that this man goes on tangents about that we'll talk about. But he was, he held a master's degree in science education and worked as a science teacher and planetarium director. He had a solid scientific background in that regard. It's not like he was Hynek level by any stretch. But he did have an education in it. His interest in UFOs stemmed from his own personal sightings, he says, a factor that, would raise concerns about potential bias in his research, which I think everybody should keep in mind when we talk about him. But his contribution to the Hudson Valley investigation was significant. He was on the ground. He was an on the ground investigator, tirelessly interviewing witnesses, visiting sighting locations, and meticulously documenting events. While Hynek was there to do in the way he'd always done it, interview people, go to the sites, paperwork, try to trace if he can contact the FAA, if he can get any records. This dude would just go out into the community and talk to people. And that's kind of all he did. And any little lead, anybody could say anything to him. It didn't matter how insane it sounded. And he would just go give them the time of day. And that is why he was kind of obnoxious when it came to Hynek, because while he was getting witness testimony, he wasn't being particularly picky about what he listened to. Like, it was just absurd claims would draw him. And again, we'll talk more about that as we talk about Imbrogno later.
Isn't that most of where we operate, to be honest?
For sure. But when we're talking about Hynek and Imbrogno as a comparison, like the way they both operate.
I mean, the space in general. Most conversations we have
sure.
are like, this person said this thing. And it's like, well, who are they? Some guy who was drunk at the time.
100%.
Like, okay.
Absolutely.
And so I wonder, he's doing kind of what most people in this space are doing.
I think I would say is if it was only Imbrogno out here and not Hynek, no one would fucking give a shit. Like, Hynek gives the credibility.
It's like us. It's like us versus like a government investigation. Like, we're here and, people kind of maybe sometimes think our show, they get kind of prickly about our research sometimes, but really, the tone of our show is here is a thing that is out there that people say, right?
Yeah.
We're just trying to kind of report back culture. So somebody like this going out and talking to people, there's value to that in a way, in a sociological way.
Yeah.
But if you're investigating for the government, I feel there maybe could be some sort of rigor to it that maybe this guy alone would lack, right?
It's just the two of them paired is just a phenomenal image in my mind. They are the polar opposites.
A sloppy guy and a G-man.
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, even with his kind of loose way of doing kind of interviews and whatnot in town, it wasn't until after the Hudson Valley stuff where he goes into the stuff that really starts to discredit him. He's the guy who came up with the term ultraterrestrial. The ultraterrestrial hypothesis is the one that suggests that some UFOs and related phenomena originate from dimensions, realities, different timelines, blurring.
Not space,
things that even go beyond, we've talked about multiple dimensional things, but he's talking the land between dreams, crazy shit. He also his claims of personal encounters get weirder and weirder the more and more he talks about them. He would also later go on to claim to have many connections with high-ranking members of government and military, though he could literally never justify those claims. And he was on Coast to Coast, which we'll reference at some point later on with George. It's so good. It's so funny because when he asks, I can't spoil it. It's just a funny little bit. It's not even.
We get to listen to this because I'm here.
We'll have the quote for it.
Okay. All right.
Either way, that's basically all you need to know about Imbrogno, because that's all he really brought. You know, he didn't have a history like Hynek did. And it's
in your mind, though, is his work legit, like in earnest work, or is it?
It is. It is to a point, and then it gets just like very. Wait
like
till we
he's
get to
doing it in
crystal
good faith,
technology
at
from the Atlanteans. Just wait till we get
Sure.
some to crystal technology from the Atlanteans that he talks about. Okay,
Yeah,
that's that's where he goes.
All right.
Like that's the direction he takes.
I love that there's like a line with you.
I know, right?
And
it is
in general, most people in ufology and paranormal stuff, there's always a line, and the line's fascinating, and it usually always is right before crystal something.
It's where my line.
Same thing with Indiana Jones movies. The line, you got an ark, that's fine. You got Temples of Doom, you got Holy Grails, great. The minute Crystal Skull, nah.
Listen,
everybody was out.
I'm not here. I don't think I'd believe in the.
That's all I'm saying is I think it's interesting that there's this weird Atlantean crystal something. There's the line. Like, no, that's stupid.
Yeah.
But anything before that is fine, which is amazing to me.
I agree, though. Like,
it's very interesting.
For me, I know everybody in the UFO community, everybody definitely has their own like weird line. Crystals tends to be a pretty regular, like a big one. For me, I think like my line comes from either the paper, like where the paper trail ends. And that's usually where I'm most convinced, because the paper trail always ends with like, well, what do you mean you research this and that's it and we don't know anything?
The line is Atlantis.
Yeah,
the line is Atlantis.
No government. I've never come across a document where the government investigated Atlantis.
Is real.
I've seen I have paperwork where they talk about remote viewing and psychic abilities. They do not ever talk about Atlantis.
Atlantis is more like, I feel like it's the type of legend that's like, here there be dragons, where like now we know there were not dragons because we scanned the whole earth and stuff. Like, I feel like Atlantis is the same thing. Like we're like, no, we know there's not Atlantis now. Yeah. There's no Atlantis. We know.
It's wild. Yeah. People. And the other part about Imbrogno that we're not really going to go into, because I don't want to dip into QAnon at all, but he's another example of how just going off the deep end and like creating crazy things leaves a lot of opportunity for really bad actors to take a lot of the lore of some of the things he kind of and like twist it and make it their own. But if you do any research, you find it really comes back to this kind of wackadoo dude who wasn't ill-meaning in any way. He was just fucking, really up his own ass about certain things. So now we'll move on to the Hudson Valley sightings themselves. The Hudson Valley UFO wave was not just like a one-off thing, like I said. It was a series of very deeply personal encounters that left lasting impressions on those who experienced them. So let's talk about some of the early sightings that started really early. Before the wave truly exploded, there were precursor events, which seems to happen in UFO flap sightings, where little isolated incidents that hinted at what was about to happen were kind of occurring. These early sightings are often overlooked, but I think are kind of crucial into establishing the context of the mass sightings that followed. And we start on December 31st, 1981, New Year's Eve, with a retired police officer by the name of Edwin Hansen. This date is just before the accepted quote unquote wave is kind of like truly pop culturally acknowledged. And Edwin Hansen, who the retired police officer from Kent, New York specifically, had an experience before people started calling them the quote unquote Westchester boomerangs. The sighting goes as follows. He was driving home when he immediately saw what he described as a V-shaped object with brilliant multicolored lights hovering silently above the road. He estimated it to be enormous, he quote unquote enormous and far larger than any conventional craft he had seen, saying, quote, "I've been a police officer a long time and seen it all. What I saw that night was bigger than anything ever made by man.
Oh my God. Max Payne.
I've seen a lot of planes, but this was no plane. The lights, the size, the way it moved, and the way it made no sound made it clear that this was something very strange." You like that?
Yeah, I like that.
All right, good.
She walked into my office, shaped like a boomerang UFO. The gams on her kept going. Like
I feel like the boomerang UFO is like it's like yesterday's drone UFO. Like I feel like we've moved on culturally. Like for like a time, like when like I was alive and like pretty much an adult man, there was like a time when all the UFO sightings were like triangles.
Yeah,
and now they're like all droney ones.
Yeah, it's weird, but. And that's where the Edge of Reality book is interesting in terms of just like Does consciousness play into it? You know, are you expecting to see something very particular, and that's what ends up kind of reflecting? But let's move on to what is maybe the most famous sighting, the thing that really kind of made this a thing. Yorktown Heights, New York, March 24th, 1983. This is the most famous night of the entire event, dubbed the Night of the Boomerang by newspapers. The sighting was hundreds and eventually thousands of people would be reporting seeing a massive boomerang-shaped craft on this very specific night, often at close range, that appeared to follow the Taconic Parkway in I-84. It became such a well-known event that the local papers began to refer to the craft as the Westchester Boomerang. It looked like a small city of lights, a flying city. I couldn't believe it. It was so big. It must have been 3 football fields long and totally silent. That's just one of the witnesses. Now, in Night Siege, a lot of the names are changed for the sake of keeping anonymity. They do not want their actual names mentioned. So the names I'm using are actually just made up names from the book themselves. So, you know, if you look for these people, you won't find them. These are one of the defining characteristics of the Hudson Valley wave, though, was the concentration of sightings along major roadways in particularly the one we just mentioned, the Taconic State Parkway. This led to numerous witnesses often driving independently, reporting similar experiences. Even at one point, multiple people all driving on the highway, stopping, getting out of their cars to watch this thing just quietly.
Literally like some Close Encounter shit.
Yeah, it was dead silent and just kind of passed over them. There's Tony Valler, who was a computer programmer at the time. Imagine being a computer programmer in 1983. He was like, beep, boop, 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 like, boop, beep, beep. Like, what are you doing? You're playing with like enormous room-sized computers. I'm trying to think, were there personal computers by like 84?
In 84, sure.
Oh, yeah, they were.
Great.
Personal computers, yes, but like, I don't know what that job was like back then. It was probably similar to now, but just like easier, probably more tedious, more simple.
Yeah. Open up your chats. I have some quotes, so I'm gonna throw. So I'm not reading every goddamn quote.
I'm ready with the quotes.
Yeah, just for the record, IBM released its 4th model of personal computer in 84. So they've been doing it for a while.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, no, so not that weird.
Not everyone had one. It wasn't adopted, but like.
Maybe at work. Yeah.
So Tony Valler, a computer programmer, he described it as big as a house. Here's the quote. Whoever wants to be Tony the programmer.
Tony the programmer. Tony the programmer is fucking hilarious. It's fucking so funny. I'll do it. I was driving along and suddenly the whole sky lit up. I pulled over and there it was, just hanging there, silent as anything. It was enormous with these incredibly bright lights. Couldn't believe what I was seeing.
You know, from the voice, I'd never guess he was a programmer.
He's in New York, though, dude. Hudson Valley, that's...
Yeah, every single person,
I've never been to Hudson Valley.
You cross the state line into New York, bing, bang, boom, that's how they sound right away. Hey, every single person, hey, what are you doing? I'm working in the Hudson Valley over here.
Hey.
Okay.
I own a cottage in the Hudson Valley over here.
It's been my family for generations.
I'm what they call old money.
We also had a bunch of just unnamed truck drivers, several truck drivers that reported seeing the object while they were traveling on the Taconic. One unnamed driver described it as huge, dark shaped with a row of flashing lights, and it moved silently across the highway. Then there was a hairdresser that was driving with their daughter on the Taconic Parkway. And Jesse, you could be the hairdresser.
I was going to say, you got truck drivers and hair drivers?
Here, you know
hair
what?
Hair drivers?
Read that one.
That's Ratatouille, dude.
That one's the hairdresser, and then this one is the trucker.
Oh my God, here we go, back to back. We were driving home when we saw an enormous thing hovering over the sky, over the parkway. There were cars stopped everywhere. People just standing there staring at it. And then, truck driver, I've driven this route for years.
Dude, he just finished.
I've never seen anything like it. It was massive, like a flying building, and it didn't make a sound. It just glided across the road, and then it was gone.
Unless
you think Cornelius.
Yeah, I don't know what the prospector fucking retired and realized the economy's about to tank, so I need to pick up a second job.
Modern prospecting is truck driving, sir.
So lest you think it was just civilians, of course, the Indian Point nuclear power plant was also heavily involved in these sightings. Located out on the Hudson River, it actually became a focal point for some of the more dramatic sightings. The proximity of the objects to this, obviously sensitive facility raised concerns about the safety and security of implications of what these things were doing. On one night, the security guards seen it multiple times. And on multiple occasions, the security guards at the plant reported seeing large, triangular or boomerang-shaped objects hovering silently over the entire facility. These reports were often accompanied by electromagnetic disturbances such as radio interference, equipment malfunctions, and the computer systems kind of just like going crazy for a little bit, according to them. One guard reported seeing the object hovering directly over one of the reactor buildings. There were several guards on duty that night that witnessed the event. One guard, who remained anonymous, described it as a huge triangular craft with bright lights that hovered silently over the plant for several minutes before it just slowly moved away. The wave of sightings on this area just continued, building in intensity and frequency, but it was always the same thing. Silently showed up, hovered, weird disturbances with their equipment, and then it would just fucking, disappear. The reports weren't just coming from isolated individuals either. They were coming from entire communities, from entire families, from groups of friends, all witnessing the same inexplicable phenomenon. The Brewer sightings was another one with multiple witnesses. The town of Brewster, New York, which I fucking love that name, became a hotspot for sightings, with numerous residents reporting close encounters with the boomerang-shaped objects. The Anderson family, which is not their actual name, one evening was driving home when they saw a large V-shaped object with, once again, bright lights hovering over a nearby field. They stopped the car and just watched in amazement as the object slowly descended, coming within a few hundred feet of their location. And here's a little quote we can take. This is from Mrs. Anderson.
I got this one. Don't worry. We were terrified, but we couldn't look away, Miss Anderson recalled. It was so huge and so close, the lights were blinding, but we could make out the shape of the thing. It was like nothing we'd ever seen before. The object ascended and moved away, leaving the family shaken, but convinced that they had witnessed something extraordinary.
That's just a snippet from the book itself. Then you have a group of teenagers that were in the area as well, reported seeing a similar object while hanging out in a local park. What do you do when you're in the 80s as teens? Like, that seems like the only thing you can skateboard, listen to some sweet cassette tapes.
Stay outside.
Movies, yeah.
Sniff a marker, play guitar, do a little crime
Drink,
that's
drugs,
relatively harmless.
What do you,
form a gang.
But there's
Stay in school.
But there's no TikTok. So, like, is any of it really fun? Right? Like,
80 what?
This is 84, 83, 84.
84?
Yeah.
So we're almost to the NES.
Yeah, it's true.
There could be, we could be JRPG kids almost. It's almost time for us.
Yeah, during this time, you get on your bike and you go until you can't goes no more.
Yeah.
And then your parents yell at you because you came home at 10 p.m.
All right.
Yeah.
You're going to be a teen, Jesse. Here's teen.
Okay. We were just messing around. Then we saw this thing. One of the teenagers, identified only as Mark, stated, "It was massive, and it was completely silent. We were all freaking out, but we couldn't stop watching it. It was the most incredible thing I'd ever seen."
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Sounds just like a teenager.
Just like a New York teen.
I thought I was
Amazing.
young again.
Yeah.
Then the Newburgh sightings are not just, more civilians. These are police that actually saw these. The city of Newburgh, New York, also experienced a high number of sightings, with several reports coming from police officers. Officer that is only known as John B., which was a placeholder name, was on patrol when he received a call about a strange object in the sky. He drove to the location and saw a large boomerang-shaped craft with multiple lights hovering in the sky. I'll give you another quote. We won't do all these quotes all the time, but this is a police officer. Let's see what kind of character is created here.
Upstate New York police officer.
Newburgh,
So he's like
wherever Newburgh is, but
okay.
All right, let me try to take a crack at this. I couldn't believe my eyes, Officer B reported. It was huge, and it was just hanging there, perfectly still and silent. I called it in, and dispatch told me they were getting dozens of calls about it. Officer B watched the object for several minutes before it slowly moved away and disappeared from view.
So, other police officers also reported the same thing out in Newburgh. A lot of people were seeing it. Then there was a small town of Stormville, New York, which became the site of one of the most compelling and well-documented close encounters during these Hudson Valley flap. With the Russo family in particular, their sons would go on to direct Endgame and Infinity War.
Is that real?
No. There's a fake. It's a fake name.
Hold on now. What the fuck?
No. It's there. It's a fake name because the family didn't want to give their.
I was about to form a unified conspiracy theory.
Yes.
That Endgame is soft disclosure.
I was about to form a whole situation.
There's a whole new episode series coming from Alex.
I was for 2 to 4 seconds. I was in another reality for a second.
They saw similar boomerang-shaped object, multiple boomerang-shaped objects that eventually culminated in a particularly dramatic encounter where one evening they saw the object hovering low over a nearby field, and as they watched it, it began to descend and started coming closer and closer to their house. Mrs. Russo goes on to say that, "We were terrified. It was so big and it was getting so close. The lights were incredibly bright and we could feel a strange vibration in the air," which is also a common thing with people with UFO encounters where in their car, they can feel like a weird vibration. But there were actual physical side effects that they ended up feeling, or physical effects that they ended up feeling during the encounter. The Russos reported experiencing things like a tingling sensation on their skin. Their hair stood on end. They also noted that the car radio began to emit static and the lights in their house were flickering. These physical effects were also reported by
straight out of the movie.
Yes. This is reported by multiple witnesses in other locations as well, adding just to the credibility of what they claimed happened. And again, they don't want to be known by their real names, so I almost take that almost a little more seriously, because if they wanted to get, famous off of it, you figured they would actually give their actual names. But they also reported their watches stopping, batteries draining, and their animals were like going off, basically barking and going crazy. But after the object quietly just left, they discovered that a section of their lawn appeared to be scorched and burned. The physical trace, while not conclusive proof of really anything, was added to the sense that something unusual was actually going on. And that is a documented recording of a burn mark where this thing supposedly was. The Yorktown Heights incident was a mass sighting, and it caused a traffic jam on March 24th, 1983. That would become known as the Yorktown Heights mass sighting. Hundreds, possibly thousands of drivers on and around the Taconic State Parkway reported seeing a giant V-shaped object in the skies, and local police departments became flooded with calls. One witness said, you know what? We're not done with quotes. This is Linda Zimmerman.
Okay, I'm done with the bit. I'm just gonna
go for it.
Do it straight. I pulled over, and there it was. I mean, this thing was enormous, and it was all just silent, no sound at all. And the lights, they were so bright, the traffic just stopped. People were getting out of their cars and looking up, pointing. I was awestruck. Never saw anything like it.
And for those of you who are under the age of 30 listening to this, there were no real easily accessible portable cameras on your phone. Like having something like to actually videotape this, you needed like a VHS recorder.
Pretty like nerdy thing to just like bust out, unless you're in like a literal news van at this time.
And this is the one I mentioned earlier, where literally traffic stopped. Everybody got out of their car and they just watched as this thing just went over. Another unnamed witness said, "It was so low and big, I can't even begin to describe it. It was like a flying city block with those colored lights, and it didn't make a sound, not a whisper." We'll leave the sightings there and move on to Hynek and Imbrogno during this time. Because as these were all going on, Hynek and Imbrogno are zipping around all throughout these little towns, getting interviews with the witnesses and, trying to get evidence as best they can. And Hynek was based at his center in Illinois, would often receive reports and analyze them for patterns, looking for correlations between sightings, weather conditions, and any potential astronomical or atmospheric phenomena. To give you a little bit more of a detailed look at his process, like you asked earlier. He was searching for always a scientific explanation, a way to fit the data into a known framework. He was, by this point, becoming increasingly convinced that something truly unexplained was occurring, but his scientific training, tried to rein him in just to, demand the proof. And then you got Imbrogno, who was immersed in the local community, was becoming increasingly convinced that the witnesses were describing something truly extraordinary. He saw the emotional toll these encounters were taking on the people. He saw the fear, the wonder, the frustration of not being believed. He was becoming more open to the possibility of unconventional explanations, even if they lacked definitive scientific proof. This is where his later divergence into like more fringe areas can be seen as like kind of a natural progression as to where this guy already was at the beginning of all this anyway. And it's not a giant jump in his character arc. It's just very difficult to take him seriously when he starts talking about Atlantean crystal technology.
What is that, by the way?
We'll get into it because, believe it or not, I don't want to say. We'll get to it. We're going to get to it. We're on our way there.
It's so fantastical. He can't even say.
I can't.
It's so complex. It's so mind-blowing that he has to save the surprise.
Exactly. The investigation continued. It was driven by the tireless efforts of Imbrogno, collecting witness testimonies, meticulously documenting the details of each encounter, while Hynek was based in Illinois, remained the crucial figure of providing the scientific guidance, lending his considerable reputation to the effort, going through all of these things. And their collaboration ended up being a blend of field investigation and scientific analysis. However, the shadow sort of loomed over their work. J. Allen Hynek, even as the flap came to an end in 85 or so, he had transitioned obviously from skeptic to advocate by this point. He was battling an illness. And in 1986, just after the book had come out, Hynek passed away from a brain tumor, leaving a void in the UFOs field and scientific community that significantly altered the dynamic of the UFO sightings out in Hudson Valley. Hynek's death was a loss not just for like the UFO community, but honestly for the scientific community as a whole. He had been a bridge between the two, a respected scientist who dared to take the UFO phenomenon seriously, and his absence would be felt deeply, and his rigorous approach to the subject would be sorely missed. Luckily, I have been reincarnated, and I am here now to re-guide the UFO world into the scientific. That's what this episode was leading to.
Can't say I like this.
Oh my God.
Can't say I like where this is going.
It's time to start.
This is way higher concept
Kufos
than an episode that I would do.
Kufos, the sequel, is going to be not a cult, maybe a cult.
Kufos.
That's what he started, remember, his Center for UFO Investigation and stuff.
Kufos, the sequel. Okay.
Yeah,
I hear it now.
Yeah, sorry. I know. Weird pull. I apologize. And for Imbrogno, Hynek's passing was not only just a personal loss, but for him a professional one. He had lost a mentor, his collaborator, and his
all
friend.
legitimacy.
Yeah, and all his legitimacy. But it also marked a turning point in his own career, a shift that would eventually lead to a lot of controversy and debate. In the years following Hynek's death, Imbrogno continued his research, publishing further books and exploring increasingly unconventional explanations for the UFO phenomenon, all while he was able to point to the book that he had worked on with the esteemed J. Allen Hynek to anchor himself in some form of credibility. He began to delve into topics such as alien abductions, interdimensional beings, and then what he termed ultraterrestrial contact. His claims became more expansive, more speculative, and for some, less credible. Some critics argue that while with Hynek, after Hynek was gone, Imbrogno felt less constrained by the demands of scientific rigor and free to explore more fringe theories and to present his personal experiences as definitive evidence. It kind of suggest that, he embellished a lot of his shit, which I think he very much did. It's not to say that his early work is invalid. That's the problem. Like, the work that he did with Hynek is valid in the context in which it was done, because he wasn't talking about close encounters of the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th kind yet. He wasn't, on that route. His contributions to documenting the Hudson Valley sightings, particularly his meticulous collections of witness testimonies, remain invaluable in a time where cameras and easy photography just wasn't as prevalent as it is today. However, we have to now acknowledge the shift in his approach after Hynek's death. Hynek developed, like I said earlier, the classification system for C1, 2, and 3. Years after Hynek's death, Imbrogno expanded the close encounter scale, adding several new categories. These additions reflect Imbrogno's shift towards his more insane shit, and the controversial interpretation of the UFO phenomenon remained very strong because of him in particular. First, there's close encounters of the 4th kind, which is a UFO event in which a human is abducted by a UFO or its occupants. Now, Jacques Vallée kind of acknowledges in his own way that this would be CE4 for him. If abductions are real, it would only make sense that after CE3, which is visually seeing a being, that physical contact with them in some way would be CE4. Imbrogno was very particular to say that CE4 is an abduction against a human's will. But I feel like that might just kind of be like implicit for most of them. You know what I mean?
Everything else is a third?
So before that is a third. You just see them. But
what I mean is, okay, but fourth is forceful abduction.
Yep.
So what about a consensual abduction? What if you just like get in a spacecraft with somebody?
Third, as portrayed at the end of Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Or according to
he
Jacques,
went on that ship of his own free will.
Right.
That's why Jacques Vallée, he says a CE4 is just abduction, period. Willing, unwilling, whatever. Doesn't matter.
Oh, boo. Okay.
Then you have Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. This a category that was
Fucking
brought
an
about
alien.
by Imbrogno involves bilateral communication between humans and extraterrestrials or ultraterrestrials in Imbrogno's terminology. This could involve telepathic communication, direct contact, or any form of intentional interaction. This is significant, we're already jumping away from Hynek's original idea for what the CE scale is. But don't worry, there's CE6, a close encounter of the sixth kind, which is when the death of
an alien.
When a death of a human or animal is associated with a UFO sighting, which is pretty fucking vague.
That's interesting. What does that mean? Like if an old man dies like during a flap of UFOs, is it related to the UFO? Is that a close encounter of the sixth kind?
I would consider, if we were going to look at close encounter of the sixth kind, there's very, very, very violent UFO abductions, particularly out in Brazil, that we will look at one day, where like the skin is peeled off their face. And like, if you really want to see the crime scene photos, they exist. I would consider that a CE6, but it's vague enough where it could be someone gets close to a UFO and we hear stories of them like getting sick or radiation poison or maybe get, cancer from it or whatever. Like I maybe would consider that CE6 too, but also, I don't know if CE6 is a real thing. I wouldn't consider that anything else other than a scientific curiosity, because it's still CE7, which is when the creation of a human and alien hybrid, either by scientific means or straight up boning an alien.
Yep, boning an alien. I knew there was a close encounter. It's as close to a 6.9 as it can be.
It is. It is so damn close. And I wonder if they'd allow a CE 6.9, because a 7 is specifically to get a human hybrid. So there's got to be like a baby.
Maybe
involved.
A 6.9 is just like a passionate affair with no intent of having children.
Let's just add that to the scale officially.
Like a 6.9 is like a one night stand with an alien.
CE 6.9 is an official Chilluminati addition to the CE scale. Period.
Yeah.
And when we eventually write our book, we'll talk about it.
Yeah. CE 420 is getting high with an alien. CE 420 is Alex getting high with Hideo Kojima. How do I make that happen?
How do we get Hideo Kojima on this show? I want that to happen.
I don't know that we do.
I
want him on.
Actually,
I want him
to have him on. So that is the sighting. I want to talk a little bit about the debunking first, before we go into the last bit of insane shit with Imbrogno and end the episode. So first, let's talk about what the excuse that was given was. The Hudson Valley sightings, with, again, thousands of witnesses, a lot of dramatic accounts, personal experiences, was running amok for multiple years. And obviously, those in power would love a much simpler, cleaner explanation to stop the chaos that's happening. The skeptical argument, the attempt to debunk the Hudson Valley sightings, rests on several key pillars, the most prominent of which is what people are talking about with the drones right now. Oh, they're just seeing planes. The people are just misidentifying what they're seeing in the sky.
How could a plane stop all traffic and shock police officers and thousands of
without making a sound?
Hold up. Before we go down this rabbit hole, the other day I was by LAX and there were about 200 people standing outside of the airport taking video of planes landing, just hanging out. Right near that where the drive-in there is.
But that's the same kind of
highway.
That's kind of like the same people.
It's the middle of the highway, dude. It is right there, right there.
When you go to somewhere on a street and you see wings, and somebody goes up and stands in front of the wings and takes a picture of that. That's the people taking pictures of planes landing at LAX. That's the same.
But I'm just saying, it definitely, people are like, planes, they're cool. So you know.
But we can attribute that one highway sighting to a plane, but what about all the other hundreds and hundreds of the exact same thing that everybody's seeing? Dead silent, not making a single noise.
I'm just saying, don't say that that's the thing when it could be UFOs. I'm just saying people are amused by, like, have you ever seen the train guy on the internet? He just loves trains. He likes riding trains, and he's a little happy British man.
I think there's more than one of those guys on there.
I'm just saying, people love stuff that we don't think they would love.
I'm just saying, if it's a plane, right? Like, it's probably not like unheard of to these people, because it's probably, something that probably happens more than once if it's a plane. That's all I'm saying. Like, if it's happening over 4 years, right? At some point they would just be like, this is just planes we're looking at, guys.
And at what point do you stop the planes from hovering over nuclear facilities?
Probably the same point that you stop drones from hovering over Air Force bases, and then say it's FAA.
Dude, exactly. See, bingo, correct. The vast majority of the sightings that skeptics say were ordinary aircraft seen under unusual conditions and then misinterpreted by witnesses who were unfamiliar with aviation or influenced by the growing excitement of the surrounding UFO flap. The primary culprit, according to the military, is a group of pilots who were supposedly known to fly light aircraft at night in formation over the Hudson Valley during the time of these sightings.
With their engines off.
Yeah, and hovering somehow. These pilots were referred to occasionally, not always, but just referred to as the Stormville Flyers because of their proximity to Stormville Airport, and they often flew at night. Basically, they were supposed to be a group of small planes, Cessna style, like planes are similar, flying in a V formation that had multicolored lights on the bottom of their planes to flash and create an illusion of a large object.
Oh, hold on. Do you think when was this created?
83, 84.
The Stephen King story, The Night Flyer. Do you think that's based off of this?
I've never heard of it.
Yeah, I never read that one.
The Night Flyer is a guy in a Cessna who goes around different airports and he lands and no one knows a damn thing about him. And then a bunch of people die and then the plane takes off again. I don't want to spoil what the guy is, but it's very Stephen King.
That came out in 1988, The Night Flyer. So
I'm just saying
it would be after this. Maybe it was.
Could it be inspired?
It may have been. Yeah, the Stormville Flyers, that kind of was their excuse, though. Furthermore, atmospheric conditions, they said, can play tricks on the eyes, which is not wrong. Absolutely incorrect. There's something known as autokinetic, I think it's called hallucination, where basically, if you look in the night sky and there's only a single light, in the void, it doesn't have to be a light. It can be any object in the middle of a void. And this was studied in the early 1900s. Your brain starts to make it look like it moves a tiny little bit. Also that's the reason stars twinkle sometimes too, is the atmospheric distortion of the light can make a light look like it's flickering or things that it's actually not doing. And I would absolutely believe that a good chunk of the things that people saw in the sky and when this is happening were something along those lines, right? It plays tricks on the eyes. Temperature inversions, haze, or even just the way light refracts can distort the appearance of distant objects. A perfect ordinary string of lights from airplanes viewed through a layer of haze could easily be perceived as a massive glowing object in the night sky. It just, there's aspects of it that, don't necessarily fit, but we're not going to, harp on it, even if I want to. And let's not discount the power of obviously fucking suggestion. Because yes, once the idea of a giant boomerang had been circulating in the media, fueled obviously by witness reports and newspaper articles, it could have just influenced a lot of other people who may have been seeing something regular in the sky, but their brain was already primed to look for something weird, and then bam, they see something weird. That's also very real. You're more likely to see a UFO when you're actually looking for something, when you're actually looking for a UFO, but are staring at something mundane. While the sheer number of reports makes it unlikely that every sighting was a deliberate hoax, it's absolutely possible, if not likely, that some were. The media attention surrounding the events could have inspired copycat reports, exaggerations, or outright fabrications. I mean, look at, again, today as an example. Once the drone thing became big, people were sending drones into the sky and causing problems. Some individuals might have been seeking attention or wanting to be part of the excitement or simply enjoying the thrill of playing a prank on a grand scale. Even to another extent, the Zodiac Killer, all the people who would call in pretending to be the Zodiac Killer, right? Like,
right. They're just being fucks.
They're being fucks and making it so much harder. And obviously, the most significant thing is there's a glaring lack of just physical evidence, like a hard physical piece of evidence of any of these things. Despite thousands of reported sightings spanning several years, there are no confirmed radar tracks of unidentified objects, at least none that were released. No authenticated photographs or videos that clearly show a large unconventional craft. But the word authenticated is important because there are a lot out there that people say, no, this is from that time. No wreckage, no debris, nothing that can be definitively linked to any sort of device or craft in the sky, boomerang shaped or not. The evidence in a skeptical view is basically, it's all anecdotal. And what are you supposed to do with anecdotal evidence? And I wholly sympathize and understand that outlook, because it's frustrating. If you got nothing, what do you, like, cool, I believe you saw what you say you saw, but unless I see it, I can't necessarily kind of lean into it. That being said, like, it's still, the Hudson Valley sightings still very much persist today. But now I want to wrap this episode up talking about the end of Imbrogno's career and why his involvement in the Hudson Valley sightings may have contributed to it not being taken as seriously, specifically because of his post-Hynek career. After Hynek passed in 86 and his career path kind of took a very different turn, Imbrogno's path diverged sharply, leading him into increasingly controversial territory. In the late 1980s, Imbrogno claimed that he had began receiving telepathic messages from an entity identifying itself as Dean Fagerstrom.
Sorry, what?
Dean Fagerstrom. Here you go.
Wait, whoa.
There you go. That's your name.
No, understood. But the first part of that sentence, you said a being?
An entity identifying?
An entity.
Yeah.
Not a human person.
Dean
Fagerstrom.
Well, we're going to get to if he's a person or not, all right? Like
an entity.
Yeah.
You're telling me that out there somewhere is an alien, an interdimensional being named Dean Fagerstrom.
Yep. Correct. Yes.
All right.
Cool. All right. Yeah. That's not even like clever. It wasn't even like Zorganoff. Like, it wasn't anything. It was
Zorganoff. Zorganoff sounds delicious.
I'd be like, okay, that
sounds delicious and creamy with
Dean?
mushrooms.
he's Dean. It's Dean. These communications, he said.
Wait, hold on. One might say it's supernatural.
Oh, hey. I get that reference. I'm so happy. I don't feel left out. It's so great. These communications, he said, were often punctuated by static-like frequency shifts, in air quotes, with visions of geometric symbols. And in particular, in his 2010 book, Files from the Edge, Imbrogno wrote, you know what? Who wants to be Imbrogno?
Where's he from?
He's from New York City, New York.
Not New York City, New York. I don't know where he's from.
It doesn't matter.
I can do a New York accent. We've been doing it all day.
Trust me, it doesn't matter.
It was like tuning a radio to a station that wasn't on the dial. The voice wasn't human. It had a synthetic quality, like a machine learning to speak.
Cousin Ernie, Tennessee Ernie Ford,
but he lives
Lucy
in
and Ricky.
According to Imbrogno, the first face-to-face encounter allegedly occurred in 1989 near the Catskill Mountains in upstate New York. Imbrogno described hiking to a secluded energy vortex site, a location reputed for having UFO activity, where apparently Dean Fagerstrom materialized in front of him. Like he said a face sort of showed up kind of out of nothing first.
Like Gary Oldman coming out of the fire?
Yes, yeah. Yes. Oh, God. According to Imbrogno, his form was humanoid. It was a tall, athletic figure in a silver gray bodysuit with, quote, piercing cobalt blue eyes and hair that shimmered like liquid mercury. But this being also seemed to shift into an energy mode, which was a translucent, luminescent being resembling, quote,
my phone does that also.
Quote, a hologram projected through fog with a voice that echoed as if filtered through a cathedral's acoustics. That's what his energy form was. Fagerstrom allegedly warned Imbrogno against recording their meetings, claiming that electronic devices would distort his vibrational matrix. And
obviously.
Yeah, that makes sense. And Imbrogno later joked, quote, I half expected him to hand me an NDA for intergalactic copyrights. Oh, wow. Oh, so good.
Although admittedly, some dude named Dean Fagerstrom definitely is a copyright lawyer. Like that checks out.
Yeah, agreed. Fagerstrom purportedly revealed that he was a hybrid entity, part organic, part machine, created by a galactic federation of light, which is now a recurring trope in New Age lore.
Cool.
And his title, what do you think his title is in this galactic federation of light?
Superlord, space god.
No, I think you'll both be very surprised. He is
Whizbanger,
the master surgeon of the universe.
Okay, all right.
You know what? Honestly, Dean Fagerstrom, MD of the universe, sounds great.
And he even had specialties. His specialties were soul-level interventions, genetic engineering, and repairing cosmic energy grids.
All right, I got questions. Doesn't this guy have why is he content? Is this like, you know how sometimes there are professionals who like during the day, they, operate on the rich and famous and they're like very important doctors, but by night they play World of Warcraft. Is this like that? Where during the day he's the doctor for the universe, but at night he's like, I just talked to my friend on Earth. I'm getting a little crazy with it.
Dean was very, Imbrogno was very into the idea of channeling as well, and made a point. I think it was Dean. It was in one of his books. I can't remember which book, and I don't know if it was Imbrogno or somebody else he was talking to made it. But he also said that often when channeling, you take on an Indian accent.
What?
It's just part of
everyone.
It. Yeah. For some reason, when you channel these spirits, your body takes on an Indian accent.
That is,
I don't like that.
That is fucking crazy.
No, I know.
That doesn't make any fucking sense, Dean Fagerstrom. Doesn't make any fucking sense.
Anyway, Fagerstrom said his origin story actually is that he said his creators were ancient beings who merged with AI, with organic life and AI, to serve as custodians of troubled planets, and Earth was in need of a fixer-upper.
The most trouble.
Yeah, it needed a fixer-upper. It needed a little fucking help.
Troubled.
Which meant he told them his objectives. One was to, first, Dean Fagerstrom was to monitor humanity's ascension, track the shifts in collective consciousness to determine Earth's readiness for open contact. Next, he's there to prevent catastrophic timelines. He's failed. Subtly altering events to avert nuclear war, environmental collapse, or even to prevent AI uprisings. He's failed very badly.
What question, real quick. What is his credentials in being able to do all this?
He's the master surgeon of the universe.
Understood, but
he
why
just slices right in,
the
dude?
Master diplomacy expert of the universe.
Well, he's here for the soul level interventions and repairing cosmic energy grid stuff. He's not the only one here. There are others.
All the souls?
Bro, maybe. He's the master surgeon of the universe, so probably.
I just feel like the master surgeon of the universe.
Are you questioning?
Do
you dare question Dean Fagerstrom?
The master surgeon of the universe?
I do. Surely there's Max Powers, the attorney general of all space.
He's busy.
Would love
he doesn't do shit.
Have a conversation.
He doesn't do shit because they defunded his office.
Elon got in there and defunded that too.
Yeah, merged that shit with AI too.
Elon is a gray human hybrid for sure.
I wouldn't even give him that much credit.
Fair enough.
He's definitely
Elon is a gray human. Period.
Sort.
He's not a. Elon's a gray human. Yeah, he's not a gray human hybrid.
He's here to prevent catastrophic timelines, help with humanity's ascension. Also, he's here to help activate starseeds by identifying humans with dormant extraterrestrial DNA and upgrading, quote unquote, them with his genetic engineering expertise, and then serve as guides during Earth's transition to the higher vibrational plane. Yeah?
As you would do.
Yeah, dude. Sounds good.
During one of the conversations that he supposedly had with Fagerstrom, he said Fagerstrom likened Earth to a kindergarten for souls and claimed the Galactic Federation operated under strict non-interference laws, except when humanity's homework threatened the cosmic report card.
I'll be honest. It's so interesting to me that the concept, and most of these, when you talk like someone's in my head and I'm talking to them, most of these are all, like soul based. Like the souls, like that for some reason is an intergalactic concept that we all have souls, which again, very Judeo-Christian when it comes to the idea of what we're doing in space, which, look, I'll be fine. If Jesus shows up again and his second coming is in a UFO and he's like, I was an alien all along, shit would make a lot more sense. I'm just going to say.
But then every Catholic Christian religion would fucking collapse.
You know what? I don't care anymore. I'll be real.
Yeah, fair. Me too. Yeah,
Is anything going to fuck anyone up ever again?
No,
I don't think so.
I don't think so. Yeah.
No information is real anymore.
No, it's all fake.
No.
Then Fagerstrom decided it was time to introduce Imbrogno to a being known as Dinestra. Now,
shit! You can't go Dean Fagerstrom and then Dinestra.
Can I ask a question? Can I ask a question about Dinestra?
Yeah.
Do you swear she doesn't have big ass titties?
I cannot.
Hold on. Does she have blue skin? Does she have a staff? Big old titties.
And for some reason, her midriff is showing.
Like one of those Princess Leia bikini bottom things. Where it like hangs down the middle and like you can't see anything, but it's all legs. Yeah.
Now, I just want you also to know before we go deep.
No, you can't confirm that?
No, something I should probably mention. I just have it here before. Dean Fagerstrom was a real person.
Okay, I have some questions.
Understandably.
Yeah.
Dean Fagerstrom claims he was the master surgeon
of the universe.
Now, Imbrogno goes on in one of his books that talks about like maybe he was channeling the master surgeon and believed he was. But Dean also mentioned that he had a crystal surgically implanted into his brain that allowed him to have future visions, and he used it to win the lottery occasionally, but not too much because that wasn't the purpose. And what's weird is that he did actually win the lottery occasionally.
What?
Yeah. So I just want to put that out there.
Is that real?
That's real.
How many times did he win the lottery?
I don't have an exact number. Do not have an exact number on that.
More than twice?
I believe it was more. Let me see if I can get that information actually.
Because
it wasn't in It wasn't in Night Siege. I had to go out for this information. I didn't read all of his books.
Dean Fagerstrom did win the lottery multiple times?
Let's see. Dean had additionally been witness attributed to and documented as being provided with extraterrestrial. So yeah, this is I've left it out because it would just take another hour. Dean says he was given extraterrestrial mathematical data alongside designs for weird creations, but he also drew the designs out. He's a very interesting character that maybe deserves an episode on his own one day.
Wait, so Dean is a real person?
Dean Fagerstrom is a real person who claimed he was the master surgeon of the universe, or at the very least, Imbrogno goes on to say, channeled the master surgeon of the universe, but he believed that he was actually the master surgeon of the universe.
Okay, but then he also reported to Dinestra. What was Dinestra's title?
We're going to go. Dinestra wasn't a real person, by the way. It is not real whatsoever.
Also, are you sure about that?
Yes.
Dean turned out to be real, and I didn't think Dean was real.
I left that as a fucking surprise to make you guys go, wait,
so
what?
Dinestra is a space what? What is Dinestra?
She doesn't have a physical form. We're going to get to that.
But like, what's her job title is what I'm asking.
Well, here, we'll go over here. So let's start.
Like, there's probably, like, what does Dinestra...
she's considered a living archive.
She's like Cortana.
Dinestra is the archivist.
Cortana is a great,
she's like Cortana.
Like an energy Cortana.
Right. So there's Dinestra, the archivist. And then obviously there's other ones, right? Because there's a whole pantheon, like Mercurian, the forger, and Vilmort, he deals with plants and animals.
Yeah.
Fang Friend, the Impaler, he's like the guy who does the justice of the Space Force. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of them.
Of course.
Of course. Yeah, exactly. It makes sense, I guess.
Fang Friend, the Impaler. That's a good name.
Let's talk about Dinestra, non-physical entity, non-living, described as a living archive of universal knowledge. And she allegedly existed outside of linear time, compiling data from civilizations across the cosmos. Imbrogno claimed that during meditative trances, Dinestra would merge with his consciousness and flood him with visions. He saw an ancient Mars, a lush planet destroyed by warring factions who weaponized tectonic energy. Think Dune meets Mad Max is what Imbrogno quipped. He goes, think Dune meets Mad Max. Then he
should never use major media franchises when describing things that he's trying to make us believe are real. Just for the record. That's like a tip. That's a tip for everyone who's trying to convince us that their book has like a secret like truth in it. Never jump to like big sci-fi franchises. That makes it seem dumb right away.
Then he got to see through these downloads Atlantis, a society that was powered by thought crystals that amplified psychic abilities. He said they basically had Wi-Fi for the mind until someone forgot the password.
Oh my God.
Because he was writing books into like 2019. This dude
Why is he writing it like a cracked article though? Why does he speak like a cracked article?
And then he saw
until someone forgot the password.
And then he saw Earth's future. A utopia where humans communicated telepathically and recycled karma like aluminum cans.
We're almost there, guys.
We're just so close. Dinestra's messages often for him emphasize humanity's need to, quote, align with Earth's ley lines and abandon fossil fuels. Typical kind of alien, like save the Earth language. The master surgeon of the universe also ended up showing him metaphysical operations, which were surgeries that were central to Imbrogno's narrative, talking about soul retrieval, which is when he repaired fragmented energy bodies caused by trauma, or unlocking junk DNA to enhance intuition and longevity, or things like implant removal, extracting mysterious devices allegedly planted in abductees by gray aliens. One case involved a woman with terminal cancer whom Frogstrom supposedly cured by, quote, rebalancing her biofield.
Don't like that.
But Imbrogno admitted, I didn't get a medical report. Dean said hospitals are vibrationally toxic.
What is the... I mean, you know what? I kind of agree, but I don't know what that means.
It doesn't mean anything.
I instinctively agree from having been in a hospital, but...
Wait, she's cured of cancer? Can I see? Bro. Fuck hospitals, dude. You go in there, you start getting lower vibrational, you start feeling more materialistic.
You can't trust the doctors to give you a real diagnosis on the cured status.
Science is Satan's creation. So obviously because of this, critics started pushing back. Like a lot of his tropes mirrored Star Trek tropes, like the Federation. Had a ton of new age cliches. Starseeds were not new. Ascension was not new. And Hynek's death kind of, I think, drove Imbrogno to like desperately seek a new mentor, and it eventually led him to Dean, who he was. And again, like I said earlier, remember, Imbrogno was willing to take anybody at their word and go like investigate. So this dude shows up and he's like, bro, I'm actually the master surgeon of the universe, and I'm going to introduce you to Dinestra, and I'm also going to do some soul surgery. You down? And he just hands him a joint, and like he's in. There was other the last bits of issues with Imbrogno is some lies. He claimed that he had a PhD in chemistry, which was debunked as a diploma mill forgery that he had gotten. He also, passages of his book in Celestial Teachings, which is a book from 2014, mirrored text from a different book, the Urantia book, which is just like another new age book that he just basically cribbed a ton of stuff from. And obviously for especially for these two, and I'm talking about Imbrogno and Fagerstrom, the monetization aspect of it. This dude was cranking out books. He was going and doing all these like tours. It's not like he wasn't rich by any stretch, but Imbrogno, I don't think really wanted to do anything else with his life. Like this was all he wanted to do. He just wanted to do UFO stuff. And I think he truly bought a lot of his own bullshit. I truly think he did. I think he was very gullible. And he always defended himself. He said, truth doesn't need footnotes. It just needs believers, which feels the opposite of what you should want.
I don't think that's what truth is.
That seems dangerous. Take it from me.
So when he was on Coast to Coast one night, and when Nori literally asked him, does he have any evidence for all of this? He said, quote, I've had a vision, George. What else do you want? That was it.
Very well.
I mean, that's like most coast to coast guests.
Yeah, that's it. He's like, I had a vision. That's all that
Let's
that's
not
it.
pretend that Alex Jones wasn't on there often.
Very well. Yeah, very, very true. By the mid-90s, Imbrogno's claims about Dean and Dinestra had turned him into basically a pariah of the ufology world, some parts of the ufology world. Other aspects of obviously embraced him, particularly the New Age mystic aspect of these things. But his stories weren't just attracting curious fans either. This is the other part where you're like, well, wait a minute, what's going on? Because according to Imbrogno, and there may be some truth to it, he may have drawn the attention of the CIA. Now, in his own book, 2010 Files from the Edge, Imbrogno alleged that after he began publicly discussing Dean's cosmic surgeries and Dinestra's apocalyptic warnings, he was visited by men in dark suits who made it clear that his revelations were, quote, not in the national interest. They didn't, and he said they didn't flash badges, but they had that look like IRS auditors who moonlit as pallbearers.
The good guys dressed in black. Remember that, just in case you have a face-to-face and make contact.
Yeah, exactly.
The title held by me, MIB, means what you think you saw, you did not see.
We're going straight to the wild, wild west. Right?
Imbrogno claimed that in 1997, he was preparing a manuscript detailing Fagstrom's role in the clandestine energy grid project linked to Earth's ley lines. Sorry, it's hard to read that sentence. One night, he returned to his home to find his office and his computer wiped clean with a note on his desk that simply read, it's like one sentence, but boys, in your most menacing voice, your most CIA voice, do.
Classified material. Cease dissemination. Friends in low orbit even.
That's it. That was a note left on his desk. When he asked Fagerstrom about it telepathically, the entity allegedly replied, quote, your government fears what they cannot weaponize. Which is just, I mean, I guess that might be kind of true in a weird way. They don't mean it. But skeptics, however, pointed out that Imbrogno's home security system, a spellbound crystal, by his own admission, wasn't exactly like the greatest. Anybody could have broken and done it, basically. Anybody who knew where he lived could have gone in and did that. Because all he had for defense was a fucking crystal with a spell.
I just don't, like... There's something incredibly funny about the potential news article of home invaders today struck Dean Fagerstrom's home or whatever, this guy's home. His crystal defense system did not protect him from their guns.
That's like a Florida man thing you would read on a Cox and Crendor, I feel like. That's like a Florida man article right there.
So insane.
And then in 2001, Imbrogno reported being followed by a black SUV with government plates after giving a lecture in Sedona, Arizona. He described the agents as two guys who looked like they'd been cloned from a 1950s FBI mugshot. And when he went up to confront them, an agent allegedly warned, hey, you keep talking about soul transplants, you're going to need one.
He was like, but yo, we ain't on no government list. We straight don't exist. No names, no fingerprints. In this section of the book, after you said,
Benvenuto,
Lord, I gotta keep moving.
Hypnotizer, neuralizer.
God damn it! Let me go. They said to him, I'll say it again.
Cameras just don't understand.
If you keep talking about soul transplants, you'll need
You'll
one.
be in one.
And
Miss
Imbrogno
Elizabeth
quipped later, I half expected them to zap me with the neuralizer from Men in Black. Instead, they just vibed ominously.
Vibed ominously?
He means
I write this?
He means vibrations specifically.
He literally means it.
He means it in a literal sense. He doesn't mean it like, yo, what's the vibe, bro? No, he's like, they had bad vibrations. His strangest claim came from 2008 when Imbrogno alleged the CIA accused him of, quote, galactic copyright infringement. And according to him, agents demanded he stop sharing Dinestra's archived histories of Mars and Atlantis, arguing the information, quote, belonged to the U.S. black projects. Tell the Pentagon, he reportedly said, tell the Pentagon to take it up with Dinestra. She's in the Andromeda branch of the Library of Congress, which I don't really get what that means.
God bless.
Yeah. He said that he thinks that their CIA's interest stemmed from two factors: the Earth grid secrets that had been allegedly revealed, which is the location of energy nodes, ley line intersections, basically, And also the starseed threat, that Imbrogno talks of activating humans with extraterrestrial DNA that supposedly threaten government control. So they don't want a bunch of psychic Karens demanding to speak with the galactic manager.
Yikes.
He also claimed the CIA had reverse engineered alien tech from Dinester's archives, including Atlantean crystal reactors and Martian karma neutralizers. Why do you think Area 51's gift shop sells so many t-shirts, he mused, which again, I don't really know what that means. I don't know what he means by that.
As a person who's been to Area 51, first off, the only gift shop is at the Little Alley Inn.
Yeah.
Which is barely an inn and barely a town. I feel like he's making jokes, but like not good ones.
Yeah, it doesn't make any goddamn sense. He goes on to say that the technology that was reverse engineered were things like the crystal core, which was Atlantean tech per Dinester's archives, revolved around massive thought-activated crystals that powered cities, healed the sick, and even stored knowledge. But Atlantis fell, Imbrogno claimed, due to hubris, which we talked about in our Atlantis episode in great depth. The ruling class weaponized then the crystals, triggering a geopathic tantrum that sank the continent. They basically tried to frack the Earth's chakras, he said. Bad idea. The CIA's crystal quest, according to his wildest claim, is that the U.S. black projects had secretly reverse engineered this particular tech with help from Dinester's archives. The Montauk Project is part of all this. In the 90s, Imbrogno tied Atlantis to the infamous Montauk Project conspiracy, alleging the CIA used recovered Atlantean crystals to manipulate the weather, build time travel tech, and even create HAARP, HAARP. That's why. And then there was the Great Crystal Heist of 2003, where Imbrogno told the story of the CIA raid on a New Age retreat in Sedona, Arizona. He alleged agents seized a vortex crystal that matched descriptions from Dinester's archives. He said they showed up with a Geiger counter and a bad vibe. And one other recounted a self-proclaimed crystal guardian that Imbrogno interviewed for this. And he said, they said it was national security. I said, hun, your aura's literally cocky.
I said, hun.
That's what the witness
like
said, apparently.
Like Johnny Cash song. I said, hun.
But is there a piece of truth to any of this? See, we're now seeing some crystal laser tech actually coming to fruition. We have Silicon Valley obsessed with this stuff, and we just recently had a Navy laser weapon demonstrated at night, which you can go see a picture of.
There's a video. It's like pretty neat. Yeah.
Which uses, I think, a synthetic crystal as like a focus. Then you have quantum crystals for quantum computing. And then, of course, you've got healing crystals in New Age shops, which, you take it or leave it. And obviously, you've got things like the 2017 U.S. Department of Defense declassified patents for room temperature superconductors and directed energy weapons. Obviously, Imbrogno kind of pounced on that, saying things like, quote, they finally admitted it. That's literally Atlantean tech with a Pentagon logo slapped on top of it.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
And I think he only recently passed in 2022, 2023, but he went to his deathbed saying all this shit to the day he died. And it's due to all this insanity that people look at the Hudson Valley, and I think there is a taste of like, well, that dude's fucking involved. Because if you know anything about this guy, it's kind of fucking crazy. But with all that said and done,
God bless him.
That is not only just the Hudson Valley sightings, but obviously those deeply involved in that, particularly Imbrogno. I still think the Hudson Valley sightings are fucking fascinating, and they do truly ring similar to the drone sightings that are still going on right now. And it's fascinating to see the excuses being relatively similar than the ones that we're getting now. And I'm sure, again, a lot of it is misidentified aircraft, but I'll leave you with that. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me here and letting me talk to you about UFOs.
Excellent.
You got a final thought, Jesse? Get it out. I want that final thought.
I'm still proud that I chose to be that man.
Yeah, you don't regret it.
Because I don't regret it, because you get to spend time with WebMD's Dean Fagerstrom. And honestly,
pretty fire.
I wish I did.
The galactic, the master surgeon of the universe.
Of the universe.
The entirety of our existence.
The universe.
Think
about how insane that sounds.
How many years of post-grad do you think that took?
Oh, I bet he's still in school he's paying off loans.
Oh, he's done. Yeah. Because capitalism is everywhere.
Yeah. You thought normal university was bad. University, uni. That's so expensive.
Dude, not fucking
You're fucked.
uni, dude.
No, you're fucked.
You're fucked. All right. We're off to go do a mini-sode at patreon.com/Chilluminati pod. Hey, we did another Rotten Popcorn that was also alien involved called Feeders.
Oh,
Go watch.
God.
If you're on there, go get it.
Don't watch it too big. Make it small so that you don't get car sick when you watch it.
Thank you all so much. We appreciate you. We love you. Goodbye.
Anyway, me and my wife were sitting outside indulging on our porch one night, enjoying ourselves. I needed to go to the bathroom, so I stepped back inside, and after a few moments, I hear my wife go, "Holy shit, get out here." So I quickly dash back outside, and she's looking up at the sky in awe. I look up too, and there's a perfect line of dozen lights traveling across the sky.